The shocking truth, she entered SEAL Qualification at 3 a.m., and then everyone stopped laughing. In the heart of the night, when the world was cocooned in darkness, an anomaly stirred. The clock ticked ominously towards 3 a.m. as whispers of disbelief coursed through the air. A woman, small yet fierce, stood on the precipice of madness, the threshold of a grueling SEAL Qualification. Friends had scoffed, their laughter echoing in the silence, until she stepped forward. In those fleeting moments, everything changed. The air felt thick, charged with disbelief. Every breath held the weight of a secret, of a challenge unspoken. Questions hung like fog. What drove her to this? What lay behind those determined eyes? The moon cast eerie shadows on the training ground, a fitting backdrop for a night where history would be rewritten. Dark clouds mingled with the whispers of those who watched, skeptical, wary. Eyes widened as she dove into the icy waters, plunging deeper into the unknown. It was more than just a test. It was a battle against everything anyone thought she could or couldn't be. Gasping for breath, she pushed through freezing waves, a living testament to courage. With each stroke, the nagging doubts of onlookers began to fade, transformed by awe. A murmur spread through the crowd, slicing the tension. Could she really do this? Did she taste the salt of the ocean mixed with the sweet promise of victory? The laughter morphed into whispers of encouragement, but it was still tinged with skepticism. She could never make it, someone said, but that voice grew quieter by the second. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the sun began to rise, its golden rays spilling warmth onto the soaked ground, the crowd held their breath. What would happen when she surfaced? Would their fears dissolve with the lingering mist? Faces shifted from disbelief to anxiety, every heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of her struggle. And then, just as they thought they'd lost her in those depths, a figure broke through the surface, grasping desperately for air and triumph. But something was unmistakably off. Why did she look so different? What had changed in those moments underwater? With one glance back at the now quiet crowd, everyone leaning in with bated breath, she stood taller than ever before, a warrior reborn. But the mystery had begun. Who was she really? What dark depths had she plumbed, and what would they reveal? The crowd erupted into a cacophony of gasps and murmurs. She stood on the shore, panting, water cascading down her face. But it wasn't just the water that had altered her. There was something deeper, something behind her fierce gaze. A flicker of something unnameable danced in her eyes, determination mixed with a hint of darkness. As the last remnants of the night melted away under the strength of morning light, the atmosphere crackled with tension. With her fists clenched and a newfound ferocity, she turned her back on the spectators, leaving them to grapple with their disbelief. She began running along the edge of the water, each step kicking up sand, transforming doubt into focused intent. Is she, for real? Someone whispered, not entirely sure whether to cheer or mock. Their bewilderment hung heavily in the air, unanswered questions piling on top of one another like anxious waves. What drove her? What secrets was she hiding beneath that fierce facade? The murmurs ebbed and flowed, blending together into a hum of collective uncertainty. Then, something caught her eye, a glimmering object in the shallow tide. She slowed, curiosity pulling her closer. Reaching down, her fingers grazed over the cold metal of a dog tag, half buried in the sand. It was tarnished and worn, a visage of loss mixed with bravery. The name engraved on it sent a jolt through her. It was a name she recognized all too well, one tied to a past she couldn't escape. A chilling realization crept in. This name tied into the very reason she was here, undergoing this insane challenge, and it was the same reason the crowd had watched her enter the waters with skepticism. Memories flooded her mind, swirling like the waves crashing around her feet. A brother, a warrior who never returned from his last mission. This moment wasn't just for her, it was for him. The air shifted as she emerged from the water, transformed. In those moments beneath the surface, she had been submerged not just in a test of endurance, but a reckoning with loss. The crowd fell silent, their laughter replaced by a weighty respect. They were no longer just spectators, but witnesses to a profound metamorphosis. The instructor approached, eyes wide with newfound respect. You know the deal. We push ourselves to the limits, and if you think this is tough, then you haven't seen anything yet. His voice was gravelly, filled with the weight of his own experiences. She nodded, understanding that the journey was far from over. But as she prepared to follow him, an eerie glow pulsed from the distance. A flicker of apprehension ignited deep in her gut. She could sense it, an unseen presence somewhere beyond the confines of the training ground. What lay on the other side of those rolling dunes? It beckoned, shrouded in a layer of urgency and danger. Just then, a flash of movement caught her eye at the edge of the waters. Something or someone was watching. She turned, heart racing, but all she could see was the ocean stirring wildly as if warning her, something was coming. Dark tendrils of mystery started to entwine around the narrative of her journey. The question loomed large: what awaited her on the horizon, and was she truly prepared to face it? The tide was turning, and so was her fate. As she stood at the brink, every instinct shouted that the real challenge was yet to come. The instructor stepped closer, his eyes narrowing as they scanned the horizon. "Listen up!" he barked, drawing everyone's attention back. "This isn't just a game. We're not here to play tag in the sand. What you saw today is just a glimpse of what it means to push through your limits." But she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It gnawed at her like the relentless waves crashing against the shore. The ocean roared, a foreboding sound that echoed in her chest. She studied the water, heart thundering more with each heartbeat. "What's wrong?" The instructor's voice cut through her thoughts. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Taking a deep breath, she forced a smile, but the tension in her shoulders remained. "I just felt something. Are you ready to move on?" He gestured towards the floating platform just past the training area. "More drills await. This is where we separate the contenders from those who won last day." She squinted, staring into the distance where shadows danced along the water. "Yeah, I'm ready." The group began to shift, forming a line to head towards the platform. She fell into step with them, but the air was thick, heavy with anticipation and dread. Each footfall was like a countdown to an inevitable clash. They hadn't seen what she had seen. They didn't know the urgency pulsating in her veins. Just then, a loud crash sent a shockwave rippling across the ocean's surface. She froze, recognizing instinctively that it was no mere wave. It was bigger, far more feral. "What was that?" someone cried out, eyes wide. "Fall back!" the instructor shouted. Everyone regroup. As they scrambled, the creature emerged from the depths, a sleek, dark silhouette cutting through the sunlight, rising and falling with purpose. It moved with a grace that belied its immense size. She felt her pulse quicken, not just from fear but a sense of familiarity. There was more to this creature than mere instinct. "Get indoors. Now!" The instructor's voice snapped her out of her trance, but she didn't move. She needed to understand what was happening. The dog tag weighed heavily in her pocket, a reminder of her brother whose presence lingered even now. What if this creature was drawn by the same force that had claimed him? "Where are you going?" a fellow trainee yelled when she sprinted towards the shore. "I need to see," she hollered back, heart racing, part curiosity, part instinct. As she stood gazing at the beast, its eyes locked onto hers. In that moment, everything felt crystal clear. An unspoken bond bridged the space between them. But then fear took over as the creature let out a deafening roar, vibrating through her bones. The crowd screamed, voices rising in chaos, and people stumbled back. She stumbled back too, torn between flight and the raw urge to connect. Then that flicker of darkness returned, flooding her once again. Voices whispered in her mind, urging her to act, to summon whatever drenched power rested deep within her. Move, move! The instructor shouted, panic lacing his command. Now! But she was rooted in place. The ocean wasn't just water, it was alive, and it called for her. But as the creature surged closer, she realized this was more than a challenge. This was a confrontation. What she needed to discover, what the tides had drawn forth, was a truth far deeper than anything she had anticipated. What was she really facing as they collided in the shadow of the shore? And did she have the strength to embrace whatever that truth might be? The atmosphere shifted once again, the tides turning ominously. She took a long breath, bracing herself, heart hammering. And then the world tilted. The ground beneath her feet began to tremble, indicating that everything was about to change. The tremors intensified, rippling through her legs and shaking her resolve. Panic flared around her as screams mingled with the roar of the creature, now mere yards away. She could see it better, the way its scales glimmered like polished obsidian, each movement fluid and hypnotic. Her instincts screamed to run, to get back with the others, but somehow, she couldn't tear her gaze away. Help us! A voice cried from behind, yanking her momentarily from her trance. A trainee had tripped, and in the chaos, struggled to regain footing. Another person stumbled over him. The panic escalated, spreading like wildfire, and her heart was torn between fear and an unseen pull toward the creature. Stay together! The instructor shouted again, his voice firm but laced with fear, the authority he had held moments ago beginning to crack as the reality of the situation set in. Fall back to the command post. Move! As the crowd rushed backward, she was suddenly flooded with memories, the warmth of her brother's laughter, the way he had taught her to swim, how he had once told her that true bravery was understanding fear and moving forward anyway. In that moment, everything collided, the past, the present, and the creature before her. An otherworldly pulse emanated from the ocean. It was almost musical, resonating in her bones, matching the wild beat of her racing heart. The creature's eyes shifted with something human underneath its scale and understanding. Her breath caught. An instructor was dragging the fallen trainee away, their breath quickening beneath the pressure of the extraordinary warning they faced. Just before she turned, the creature let out another growl, shaking the air and drawing her focus back. Do you hear that? She whispered to no one, but the words seemed to hang in the air. The sound, it was a rhythm, a call and response echoing from the depths, like a language she wasn't meant to hear. But she did. That haunting melody brushed against her consciousness like a forgotten song, urging her to listen, to understand. Suddenly, something shifted within her. An unyielding resolve ignited. It was time to take a stand. She stepped forward amidst the chaos, clutching the dog tag in her pocket. Time stretched, and for a moment, it felt as if the world slowed down. I'm here! She shouted, voice cutting through the fray. I won't hurt you. The creature's dark pupils locked onto hers, searching, assessing. The world around fell silent, as if the ocean itself paused to listen. The wind stilled, leaving only the sound of her own breath and the distant crashing of waves. Then, the ground shook worse than before, and cracks began to form at her feet. Waves rushed upward, churning and wild. Something was awakening beneath the surface. A chill crept down her spine, and she realized this was just the beginning. The creature's eyes glimmered ominously, a reflection of something ancient and powerful. With each pulse of light radiating from it, she felt a connection, a stirring from deep within her. She barely understood it, but she could feel the truth boiling just beneath the surface of her intuition. Just then, another dark figure emerged behind the creature, larger, even more intimidating, with scales that shimmered like shards of glass. What the hell is that? Someone hollered, breaking the uneasy silence as horrified gasps erupted around her. The creature moved protectively in front of her, and she felt a rush of warmth. Trusting instincts collided with dread, stirring her into action. She had to make a choice: would she stand with her newfound ally or be part of the fear that threatened to consume them all? As shadows danced along the shoreline, she felt the weight of her brother's tag pulse against her skin, pushing her toward the truth that waited just out of reach, unseen but potent. And what was lurking beneath the surface? What had escaped the depths of the ocean and was ready to change everything? The ground under her began to tremble more violently, leaving her unsteady. She could feel the energy in the air shift, pulling at her instincts. The larger creature behind its companion let out a deep rumble, shaking the very core of her resolve. Doubt loomed, but so did a growing sense of responsibility. "Get out! Now!" The instructor's voice thundered, though it was filled with desperation rather than authority. Behind her, the panic surged, and people scrambled for safety like ants disturbed from their nest. She could hear frantic breaths and whispered prayers in the chaos. "Don't move!" Her body screamed as she remained rooted to the spot, transfixed by the shimmering scales that writhed in aggression and grace. The smaller creature kept its eyes locked on hers, and she felt as if time folded in on itself. "Come on!" Someone urged her, pulling at her arm, but she shook him off. She couldn't look away. The connection pulsed stronger, as if both creatures were drawing her in, compelling her to stand firm in the face of the storm that raged all around. From the depths of the ocean, a bubble ascended, bursting forth with a powerful surge of brackish water. And then silence. The screams halted, the frantic movements froze, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. With that sudden stillness came clarity. She wasn't only facing a creature of legend, she felt as if she were standing on the threshold of an ancient war, a battle between fear and understanding. What if the creature didn't want to fight? What if it had returned for something more profound? Suddenly, a sharp crack sounded as the ground erupted near the shore. A monstrous tentacle reared from the ocean depths, arcing gracefully before plunging back beneath the surface, sending a wave crashing onto the beach. The larger creature roared, feral rage sizzling in its voice, and the smaller one reacted by bracing for what was to come. "Did we disturb something?" her mind whispered frantically. The very ocean felt alive, angry, awakening after centuries of quietude. Above the chaos, she noticed the larger creature turn its fearsome gaze away from her and toward the tumultuous waves, almost as if it recognized the threat that was now revealing itself. "Stay back!" The instructor shouted one last time, but they were all too late. The mass of writhing darkness surged toward them, as if magnetized to their fears. The smaller creature took a step forward. With a guttural growl, it stood between her and the approaching mass, its body tense and ready to defend. A blinding light pierced through the clouds above, illuminating the chaotic scene as the ocean churned. And for a wild heartbeat, she caught a glimpse of the tendrils of the enormous beast now fully emerging, a colossal harbinger of doom that loomed large against the horizon. "I won't let you hurt them!" she shouted, pushing her way forward even as her heart raced. The pulse of her brother's tag grew frantic against her skin, urging her to connect, to rally not just for herself but for everyone around her. "Please listen!" But was she even speaking to the creature or to the storm inside herself? Moments stretched like eternity as both creatures turned to her, waiting, watching. But the earth trembled again, a deep groan rattling the beach, and she knew a reckoning was at hand. The lines were going to be drawn, and with it, the question lingered: would she step forward or watch everything she knew crumble into the abyss? The air thickened as the tension reached a boiling point. Her heart pounded, each thump a reminder of the gravity of the moment. The landscape felt surreal, charged with an energy she had never experienced. All sounds muted to a whisper, a strange harmony echoed in her mind between the creatures and the chaos. Seconds ticked by like hours. The larger creature's roar faded into a low growl, a reminder that it was not just a beast but a guardian of something deeper, something sacred. She forced herself to breathe, steadying her racing thoughts. "What do you want?" she finally dared to ask, her voice raw and small amidst the madness. The smaller creature shifted, moving closer to her, its eyes unwavering. They shone like twin stars, illuminating the shadows of fear that clung to the crowd. She felt a warmth rising in her chest, a flicker of connection that bolstered her resolve. Perhaps it wasn't just a beast. Perhaps it carried a message, one lost in ages, waiting for someone brave enough to understand. Suddenly, a massive wave surged forth, crashing against the shore with vengeance. It sent a spray of salty mist over everyone present. Her instinct kicked in. She searched the crowd, seeing the panic etched on the faces of her peers, the terror gripping her instructor's features. Get to higher ground! Someone yelled, piercing the reverent silence as a new swell loomed ominously close. But her feet remained planted like the roots of an ancient tree, anchored to the moment. The shadows beneath the water expanded, tendrils lashing out as if they were drawn to her. But the smaller creature placed itself firmly in front of her, yet again signaling its readiness to defend. An instinctive gasp escaped her lips. What could it possibly do against this rising threat? Yet before the wave struck, a flash of light burst from the very heart of the ocean. It radiated with a brilliance that dimmed the very sky. She squinted against the glow, feeling the pulse of energy echo through her like the distant roar of thunder. "Please!" she implored again, her desperation clawing at her throat. "I don't want anyone to get hurt." In that brilliant moment, the wave hesitated, curling back as if it were slowly beginning to understand. The larger creature shifted too, its temperament evolving from fury to something almost protective. Together, they stood the ominous darkness and the void of light. "What is happening?" a voice questioned from the crowd, uncertainty hanging in the air like a thick fog. The ground beneath her feet heaved again, and cracks spiderwebbed through the sand as the ocean both surged and retreated, creating an eerie dance between chaos and calm. She instinctively reached for the smaller creature with a trembling hand, feeling the warmth radiate from its body. It was almost like it was breathing with her, sharing in her fear, channeling her strength. An inexplicable synchronization unfolded. Would this moment transcend what she feared? Did the creature sense the hearts of the anxious crowd pulsing with the same fears? An understanding rose between them, raw and palpable like the churning ocean. Then, she heard it almost a whisper within the roar of the waves. A message woven into the pulse of the earth. Or was it only in her mind? Claim your place. Her eyes widened as realization struck. She wasn't just witnessing a confrontation. She was being called to a purpose. But what did that mean? Was she ready to take that step, to confront not only the external battle but the turmoil within her soul? As uncertainty loomed larger than the creature in front of her, the world came crashing in. Silence fell again, but it wouldn't last. Would she gather her strength and push forward, heed the call to action, or retreat into shadowed despair? The tentacles withdrew, but not without leaving behind a question stronger than the chaos. A vow of confrontation lurked in the depths, and she would either answer it or lose everything she had come to cherish. What lay beneath the surface was far more than a creature. It was an invitation to awaken an inner strength she never knew existed. And as the tension coiled around them all like the very waves themselves, she could feel it. A revelation was building, just on the brink, waiting to change everything. Would she seize it, or would she allow it to slip away? As the eerie silence enveloped the beach, an unsettling awareness crackled in the air. Her heart raced, matching the rhythm of the waves that danced dangerously close. The ground beneath her trembled, sending a shiver up her spine. Wanting to scream, she instead gripped the smaller creature, drawing strength from its presence as if it were a lifeline. The crowd seemed paralyzed, their faces painted with shock and fear. She wished she could find their voices, to know she wasn't alone in this moment of chaos. But the weight of uncertainty sat heavily on her shoulders. What did claim your place truly mean? Was it a challenge? A solemn vow? Suddenly, the larger creature let out a low growl that echoed like thunder through the air. It turned its fiery gaze on her, eyes deep as the abyss. Something shifted within her. A flicker of understanding sparked, igniting embers of bravery amidst her panic. "Am I meant to stand with you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the tumultuous seas. As if in response, the creature stepped closer, its massive form casting a shadow over her. The salty breeze ruffled her hair, filling her lungs with a taste of the ocean's might. The ocean roared once more, a menacing sound that rose above her thoughts. Tentacles churned closer, dark and formidable, pulling the water into a foamy frenzy. They writhed toward the shore, hungry for something. What, she couldn't tell. But the larger creature held its ground, a sentinel against the impending wave of chaos. Yet, even as the threat loomed larger, a sudden realization coursed through her veins. The creatures were not merely beings of ferocity. They were bridging two worlds, one of fear and one of hope. They were erratic energy turned into purpose. Here she stood, her heart pounding, in a moment that demanded a choice. Stand firm. Her instructor's voice broke through the panic, pulling her from the depths of her thoughts. The frantic eyes of her peers snapped back into reality, and they began to call to one another, moving toward higher ground as the threat appeared all too real. But hesitation gripped her soul. Would she flee, or would she lean into whatever this moment was unfolding? Would she embrace this beastly responsibility, the call to unite the chaotic forces thundering around them? As if reading her thoughts, the smaller creature nudged her gently. No brutality, only a plea. The warmth of its gaze bolstered her trembling spirit. Maybe claiming her place meant embracing this challenge, confronting the unknown that lurked in the shadows. "I'm not afraid," she shouted, her voice breaking through the confusion, echoing against the crashing waves. The words left her lips, both a declaration and a challenge, vibrating with the depths of her heart. But silence fell again, thicker than before, as the shadows stilled. The huge creature raised its head, cutting a formidable figure against the shifting tides. The crowd paused, all eyes drawn to her, their collective breath held. What would happen next? Would the creatures respond to her newfound bravery, or would the chaos win once more? From the depths of the ocean, the water began to bubble ominously, and she felt a faint tremor beneath her feet. The invitation had been made, but what would it demand of her? As the sea surged higher, she felt the weight of destiny waiting to collide with her reality. All at once, a shadow broke through the stillness. Something immense stirred beneath the surface. Would this revelation bring salvation or despair? The darkness promised answers, and she had to decide if she was ready to embrace what lay beneath. The ocean churned violently, frothing with white-knuckled waves that crashed against the shore. She braced herself, feeling the spray of salt on her skin, a reminder of the forces at play. The tremors beneath her feet intensified, a heartbeat of the earth itself, pulsing with raw power. Fingers trembling, she looked at the smaller creature pressed against her side, its eyes reflecting an understanding she needed more than ever. This moment was just a test of courage. It was a crucible, forging something inside her that she hadn't recognized before. The crowd seemed to hold their breaths, poised between fear and awe. She felt the weight of their gaze, a collective hope tethered to her as that gargantuan shadow beneath the waves continued to grow, stretching toward the surface. Her heart raced. Their lives hung in the balance. "Don't retreat," she told herself, swallowing hard. The call to claim her place was now more than just a whisper. It had erupted into a roar that vibrated through her very bones. Gritting her teeth, she stepped forward, a single, bold foot planted in the sand. The feel of the earth beneath her was grounding, a reminder that she was not alone, that something greater was at stake. Then it happened. The monstrous shadow broke free from the depths, towering high above them. It surged forth with a violent spray, revealing jagged fins and swirling colors that illuminated the dark waters like a beacon. "What in the world?" someone near the back of the crowd gasped, their voice dripping with terror. It was a beast of lore, scales glinting with hues that danced in the sunlight. Breathing raggedly, she felt a wild mix of fear and fascination grip her. This was not just a creature, it was a manifestation of the very chaos she had felt reigning in her heart. But as it emerged, another creature followed, smaller yet equally formidable. This one had a grace about it, a sleekness paired with an unexpected wisdom mirrored in its dark eyes. The larger beast reared back, letting out a guttural roar that resonated with the very soul of the beach, shaking the cliffs and sending birds scattering from their roosts. "Claim your place," she shouted again, strength emanating from her core. The words echoed all around, daring the elements to challenge her resolve. Would it listen? Would they honor her stand? The crowd parted slightly, hush descending like a thick fog, eyes wide with anticipation, and then the tension broke like the sound of shattering glass. The smaller creature surged toward her, a shot of energy that cut through the chaos. It stopped at her feet, rearing back as if proposing a pact. The larger beast observed her from a distance, swallowing the world in its intensity. A shiver ran down her spine. Was this the moment? To bond with these creatures? The wild uncertainty tugged at her. Would their alliance bring salvation, or would it lead to her undoing? Glimmers of light began dancing in the air, strange and mesmerizing, swirling around her like fireflies drawn to warmth. The crowd gasped collectively, caught in a trance of the bizarre spectacle unfolding. But as the lights flickered brighter, something else emerged from the depths. It was dark, menacing, an unseen threat lurking amid the beauty. Holding her breath, she took a moment to assess the growing tempest swirling above the waves. What else lurked beneath that could change everything? In that explosive second, she finally understood. Claiming her place meant facing whatever nightmares followed, no matter how unimaginable. A weight pressed against her chest, the pulse of destiny unmistakable. Whatever you are, I'm not backing down, she whispered fiercely as the shadows began to converge. But suddenly, the ground shook more violently than before, and a blinding flash ignited the sky. What came next would change everything. Could she withstand the fury unleashed, or was the tide of fate destined to sweep her away? The explosion of light dimmed, swallowed by the vastness of the ocean. A ringing silence enveloped the beach. Everyone's eyes were glued to the monstrous figure emerging from the waves. The majestic creature towered over them, shimmering scales reflecting the sun like shards of glass. It seemed to breathe the tempest itself, an ancient force awakening in their midst. And then, without warning, a deafening roar shattered the stillness, echoing against the cliffs like a thunderclap. The ground quaked again, sending vibrations rippling through her legs. She stumbled, but a surge of instinct propelling her forward steadied her resolve. "Stay with me," she called to the smaller creature, feeling its presence like a heartbeat against her. They were entwined now, bound by a shared purpose. The crowd stood frozen, faces a mix of horror and enchantment. The colossal beast twisted its head toward her, great eyes narrowing. She could see intelligence there, an understanding, and something deeper, curiosity or perhaps a challenge. She inhaled sharply. It felt like a dare. "Show me," she breathed, forcing her voice to carry despite the chaos around them. "Show me what you are capable of." She felt it deep in her core. This was her moment, her stand against the chaos of the world. The challenge hung in the air thick like fog, the tension shifting as the larger creature hesitated. Suddenly, a flash from beneath the waves caught her eye, dark and fleeting, pulling her attention. It was a flicker of something monstrous, a creature not unlike the two before her, but denser, shrouded in shadows. Her heart raced. This wasn't just a display of power, it was a warning. "Get back!" Someone shouted from the crowd, breaking her focus. Panic rippled through them, fear cutting the air like a knife. "No!" she shouted back, frustration tinging her voice. "This is our moment. We can't run." They were at the edge of something monumental, a precipice of epic struggle between light and darkness. The smaller creature pressed closer, and she felt a surge of warmth, a flicker of courage. It was more than an impulse, it was a flood, and she was ready to embrace it. The shadows swirled, and with them emerged the dark silhouette, its large eyes glowing ominously. With a battle cry that boomed over the waves, the larger beast lunged forward, and she instinctively stepped to its side, facing whatever emerged from the abyss. The creature barreled through the water, a whirlwind of muscle and fury, a guardian ready to protect. The scene was explosive, sharp teeth glinted against the sunlight, chaos erupted, and she found herself exhilarated by the energy swirling around her. The smaller creature was darting at her feet, agile and focused, sensing the threat like a true ally. But amidst the crash of waves and roars, a realization struck her. This alliance was more than mere safety, it was a pact of purpose. Would the creatures protect her? Would she protect them? It was interconnected. Destiny wove them all together in this moment. "Fight!" she screamed, somehow believing that her voice would embolden them. Together they would face the darkness head-on, and just as the thunderous body of the beast collided with its shadowy counterpart, a blinding light burst forth, illuminating the tumultuous waves. She shielded her eyes, heart pounding fiercely with anticipation. What had she unleashed? No one knew what would happen next as the currents shifted, creating a storm, a whirlpool of fate that spiraled around them. The air crackled, tension spanning like a taut wire, electric. With all her might, she pushed toward the chaos, ready to face the truth of their predicament. Could she lead them from this darkness, or would she be consumed by it? The tempest raged on, but hope flickered somewhere amongst the turmoil. As the storm boiled around them, she stood her ground, feet planted firmly in the sand. The monstrous figure of the larger creature clashed against the shadowy beast from the depths in an explosion of power. Waves crashed violently, sending sprays of salt water cascading onto the dunes, mixing with the tension thick in the air. "But I won't back down!" she cried, not just to the creatures but to everyone around her. The crowd held their breath, suspended in disbelief. They had come to see a spectacle, a test of limits, but now they were thrust into a maelstrom that rippled through the very fabric of their reality. With every ounce of courage she could muster, she moved closer to the chaos, feeling the pulse of something ancient resonate within her. The two creatures fought, and she felt their determination, their desperation, mirroring her own. They weren't just monsters. They were partners, protectors, and perhaps even reflections of what lay deep within her self-strength buried under layers of doubt. Together! She shouted through the cacophony, knowing she needed to unify her resolve with theirs. The moment was bigger than swimming drills or qualification tests. It was a call to arms against darkness. She took a step toward the turmoil, heart racing. With the larger beast crashing into its shadowy foe, the darkness roared back, tendrils of despair reaching out as if trying to ensnare her. But something shifted. The smaller creature darted to her side, nudging her, urging her to stay grounded. The warmth radiating from its form infused her with renewed strength. "I trust you!" she shouted, and in that moment, their bond solidified. It was a vow not only to herself but to the larger creature battling for righteousness. The tide surged, another wave crashing against the shore, and the ground shook beneath her feet again, but she was no longer rooted by fear. She felt alive, bursting with vigor, ready to confront whatever this tempest had in store. Then came the crack of thunder that split the atmosphere, illuminating the skies. The chaos intensified as shadows writhed and twisted, entwining with the vibrant energies of the creatures battling fiercely against them. Suddenly, she sensed it, a connection, a whispered understanding that came not just from the creatures but from within the very ocean depths themselves. The power surged through the air, electrifying everything around her, and her brother's dog tag felt as if it were speaking directly to her, reminding her why she was here. "Claim your place," she roared, heart filled with determination. The words echoed through the maelstrom, reverberating against the cliffs as if the very world demanded her to stand tall, to harness her inner warrior. In a heartbeat, everything aligned. As if in response to her boldness, the larger creature let out a guttural roar, propelling itself forward into the storm. The smaller creature joined, darting alongside the larger figure, twining through the chaos that had engulfed the beach. The eerie light enveloped them both, harmonizing while intensifying with the thunderous clash of ocean against beast. She hadn't just overcome, she had transformed the chaos into courage. The crowd erupted, disbelief turning into fervent shouts of support as they watched her embrace her destiny. At last, the larger creature collided head-on with the shadowy threat, unleashing a brilliant flash of energy that pierced the gloom. The force surged, a dazzling display of unity that branched out to envelop everyone gathered, and then silence. The storm quieted, a soothing embrace enveloping the disciples of chaos. She stood breathless, gazing at the two creatures poised before her, guardians united, an alliance born from struggle. Shadows dissipated, curling away like smoke, leaving only the glimmer of sunlight dancing upon the sea. It was then she understood, this was about more than just survival. It was about sacred bonds forged through bravery and sacrifice. The ocean, once a tempest, now shimmered with hope. As the crowd began to cheer, their laughter mingling with voices of relief and awe, she couldn't help but smile. She had claimed her place not just among her peers but in the grand tapestry of the ocean, a fighter reborn from chaos. Over time, whispers of this battle would spread, tales of bravery echoing through the ages. But for her, it was the quiet knowing, the connection forged in camaraderie that mattered most. As she faced the horizon, the rising sun painted the sky with unimaginable hues. "Thank you," she murmured, feeling her brother's spirit dance upon the breeze. Then she turned to walk back to the crew, the rush of their excitement flooding her heart. They weren't just individuals anymore, they were a family. and as she stepped into their embrace, she knew this was just the beginning. The moment pulsed with possibilities. She had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. A new chapter awaited, and she was ready to meet it head-on. Before they left, she glanced back one last time at the ocean. "You're a part of me now," she whispered, her heart steady, resolute. The waves lapped against the shore softly, as if in acknowledgement. "Now, as the story closes, remember this was no ordinary tale. Join our community. Subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next adventure. Smash that like button now to support the channel, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what comes next. Don't wait even one more second to share this epic conclusion with at least 5 friends who need to see this. You need to be part of our journey.